I don't remember ever not being obsessed with music. I never had a moment in my life where I had to think, what am I going to do with my life? I don't understand how that even feels, because I never ever thought I wouldn't be a musician. I didn't know what kind of musician I would be, but I just knew, and everyone knew. It was apparent from the time I was very young that that was what I was going to do with my life. I was obsessed with singing, with playing instruments. I just begged and begged and begged to play instruments, and then I would be studying one instrument and say, well, now I want to play the cello. And my parents would say, we're already paying for violin lessons, we already pay for your violin every month, we rent it, you know, that's another expense, what if you don't stick with it? And I'm like, oh, trust me, I'm gonna stick with it. And then I wanted a piano, and we went through the same push and pull. And here it is, you know, 25 years later, and I'm still playing all those instruments. No, I make a living about how people aren't happy all the time. And I do, you know, that's my niche, and I'm cool with it. But yeah, I mean, I'm not happy all the time by any stretch of the imagination. I try to be happier, and sometimes I succeed. I try to be more positive, but I'm very cynical by nature, so when any situation comes up in my life, I tend to think of everything that could go wrong first, and be prepared for it, but then hope for the best possible outcome. I don't know, I feel like I'm very realistic. I'm also a Libra, so I go, well, it could be this, or it could be this, and this could happen, and this could happen, and what's the best possible? But I've just
exhausting.
It is exhausting.
Yeah,
you know.
I do.
But I've been burned a lot too, you know, in life, in business, and relationships. So I've just learned to hope for the best, but be prepared for the worst. Or not prepared for the worst, but prepared to react. Passionate people have to have that quality. Or ambitious people, I guess. You have to be willing to fight for things.
I think artists are like that.
Real artists. I think that term.
Stop me up right away.
Oh, well, just say.
You
I don't know.
car money.
See, I'm
You've
just
been
saying.
talking shit.
I think a lot of people use that term too loosely.
Artists, yeah.
Some people.
What do you think?
I think there's a glamour to it that people perceive. Or I know, not in reality. But that's the thing. I think if you're really doing it, you understand what that entails, and it's not all fun and games, but I don't know, I think people want to be an artist because it seems romantic or something. It makes you seem maybe more intellectual or sensitive.
Yeah. Or I find people think it's sexier until they get to know you, and all that goes into what you do.
Right.
You know, that, you know, because people, I'm sure for you here, the music, it's like,
yeah.
You must just sit home, just
playing the piano all day and just deep in thought. And I have a Kierkegaard book in one hand and Proust in the other. You know, like it's just not.
a latte.
Right.
Yeah.
No, tea, I think, for me.
Tea, yeah.
Chamomile tea with just a drop of honey.
You know.
And sometimes I do.
It wasn't me then who took you to the edge and watched you fall. It wasn't me then testing your desire by setting fire to the hearts of Jupiter. To the hearts.
Same time. Yes, I know a lot about music theory. I studied music for a long time, and I was very serious about it. So I like that. I have this toolbox of things that as a composer I can use in a way that's second nature. I don't sit around every day thinking, well, do I go here or do I go here? I know all of my options, and I go with the thing that I like the best, that moves me the most. But I don't have to sit around and agonize over that because I did all the work to learn the technique and the boring stuff.
Well, you've become the instrument.
Right, or the channel. I mean, even if it's something inside of me, it's not something that I can easily access. So, and I'm an agnostic, so I can go, the Libra comes back into that. Like, if there's nothing, then it must be something in my brain that makes the music happen. If it's something spiritual, that's fine too. I don't need to know. I just know that some days I can sit down and get nothing. And other days I sit down and it's like I can't go fast enough to get what's in my head out. And I can never quite get it out the way that it is in my brain. I do the best I can, but it never sounds like it does in my head. And as an artist, I've had to really learn to juggle that, to be okay with that it's never going to be the perfect thing that I hear. because you're translating something. And for me, music is like a language.
Fly away now, you must go. There is truth to be found. You are more than you are. Follow the path through the night. You will find in the morning light a new self outside and go.
I just thought, it was 2 years into my career and I was just really kind of miserable. I was broke and I was struggling and I was getting rejected all the time. And so I wrote a song called Eden, which is still one of my favorite songs. It's just a piano vocal with just a tiny little keyboard part underneath it. But then I did all this stuff with vocals where the lead vocal's in the center and then there's like question and answer things going on that go on the left side and then the right side. And so there's all these lyrics happening. And I just always thought it was really like a strong piece that I wrote, but I never felt like it fit a record because it was so intense. But there's a line at the end that says, I am alone in these words, I will never be more than they are. I am the bearer of song, I sing, but that's all, I don't belong on the outside. And to this day, if I hear that, it makes me feel very emotional because I felt so exposed in that. There was a part of me for a long time that felt like I was only valued as a musician and not as a human being. And I saw people like Tori Amos and Sinead O'Connor and Sarah McLachlan, and they were doing their own thing and their music was very authentic and it wasn't so much what you would consider pop music at the time, and they were doing really well. And I thought that they must be doing well behind the scenes. Like, look how easy it is for them. The record company lets them do whatever they want. No, I didn't know, you know, but I didn't know how hard they had to fight to be that. So I had these role models and I just thought, I'm gonna go into the world and I'm gonna get a record deal and it's gonna be easy. And I'm gonna be famous in a year. I'll be the next Tori Amos, I'll be the next Sinead O'Connor, I'll be the next whatever. I was certain of it. And you hardly ever see an interview with any famous person, musicians too, where they're like, yeah, I'm just going through a really tough time right now. Every interview you ever see is like, I'm on the other side and I'm taking life by the balls and everything's perfect.
Yeah, but it's not always true.
5 years later, you see, oh, I was going through the worst time ever. People hide all of that. I was taught to hide that by the PR machine, to hide the truth, to always be wearing the latest fashions or look like you were, look like you have money, even when you don't. Don't look like you're begging. But the reality changed so much that musicians like me decided, and there are a lot like me, we decided to kind of open the curtain, say this is what life is like for me. This is how little I make. I've chosen to make that little.
But this is how it works.
But this is what it's like. And when you steal my record, you are literally taking food out of my mouth. Literally. Or the roof over my head. And when people are like, you release so much music, I have to because I have to pay the bills.
And there will be happier days. There will be sun in the sky. There will be more in your life now. And there will be happier days. There will be sun in your sky. There will be more in your life.
She wants to lead the glamorous life, huh?
Yeah. But yeah, I had signed to Sony at this point, and I was living in New York and writing songs, and I didn't have a guitar. And I felt this song coming to me very strongly. So I went across the street and bought a guitar and came home and wrote that song that day. I think what's interesting about it is that I learned a lot more from that song way later. I think at the time I was just trying to write something uplifting or hopeful. Always acknowledging that life is hard though. I can't do just straight up happy, it just doesn't work for me.
Life's not straight up happy.
No, that's the thing.
That would be ridiculous.
Because I'm saying to someone,
I don't think I would be sitting here if that's what the music
right. But a lot of the times in my songs, I'm in the hot seat. The I in the narrative is the one suffering. This was a song of me looking at someone else who's suffering and saying, hey, don't worry.
Yeah.
I've been where you are. We've all been there. But it will not always be like this.
Do you think you were talking to yourself too a little?
Yes, that's what I think. After the fact I realized, of course, I wrote that song like a month and a half after I had signed to Sony. That was a very scary time.
Yeah.
I was terrified of that kind of machinery. I knew everything that could go wrong. I had Also, though, wanted that my whole life. I thought, if I can get signed, everything will be perfect. And I'll get to go on tour and play the 3,000 seat place and have some cool lights and some projection screens. And I couldn't wait for that. I just wanted that.
You wanted to share the gift.
Yeah, and I wanted to share it in a big way like that. I wanted people to come to my shows and they would be this experience that was like sweeping and gorgeous and beautiful and walk away going, that was really intense. Like watching your film.
When it laid out, I thought I failed. I said out loud, I felt derailed, but I can find a way back out. I can't be sure, but something's inside out.
For me personally, Inside Out was that I had called up my old friend Kevin Killen, and he's an engineer and a producer that worked with everyone that I loved, like every idol of mine musically that was living. So I had seen his name over and over in my life, and so when I signed to Sony, he was one of the first people I called. Just said, I don't know who you are, I've never met you, but you've worked with everyone I love, so I just feel like we'll be peas in a pod. And so he engineered my whole album. So I did get to work with him for three and a half months, and just really, really liked him. But he was another one that I just had kind of fallen out of contact with because I thought, well, he's Kevin Killen, and I'm nobody. So I was going to be in New York, and I emailed him and said, hey, do you want to have lunch? And he was like, of course I do. And we met for lunch, and he just gave me a pep talk that day. He said, it doesn't matter that you're not with Sony. Not one person that worked with you didn't respect you immensely. There's not one person that worked with you that wouldn't pick up the phone if you called, because it was very obvious to all of us how good you were at what you do, and how much you believed in it, and how hard you work. You are not some flash in the pan that no one's ever going to want to hear from again because you weren't serious. You weren't the kind of artist that showed up for 3 hours a day, wasted, with 6 of your friends going, is it time to do vocals? And some people are like that. But I was there every day.
What you did.
Yeah, and I was...
That's what I responded.
Well, and I knew that I was one of the boss people. So I made sure to be there whenever anybody else was there. Like if the engineers were there and they were doing the busy work, I stayed with them for 2 extra hours or whatever. Like, you can go home.
Whose name is going on that CD?
Mine. But it's important to me to keep the atmosphere, the camaraderie. I want everyone to feel respected and heard and cared for and liked. That's how I want anything that I'm a part of to be run. So Kevin said, you just need to go out and pick up the phone or write an email, because people will respond to you. You should not let yourself lay down and die. The best thing about me is my passion. I'm very aware of that. I'm very aware of how motivated I am on all levels because I'm passionate. I'm motivated in a business way because of that passion. I'm motivated as an artist out of that passion, but I'm also motivated to care about people because I'm so passionate about them.
Because you know what it affects.
And I care a lot about my relationships. I care a lot about doing the work. No matter how busy I get, I make sure to go, hey, I know we haven't talked. I'll check in with you. Let's make sure we catch up properly. I think that is a big deal. I think not enough people do that in the modern world. So I think passion covers all of those bases. And I think if I didn't have that drive, I don't know what I would accomplish in any way. Personal relationships, work, because I can be incredibly lazy. So whatever that fire is, it's what makes me work. It's what makes me do anything. But the Romantic period, the composers really just went for it, and I write that way as a musician. A lot of my work is very cinematic and ethereal and big, and to me that is something that resonates with me. If I hear like Tchaikovsky and it's going, I'm like, yes! That's how it feels for me to be a human being. That's how I feel inside. So I love that kind of music.